Let me be real with you. Most people walking around right now think their money is safe. It's in the bank, it's in cash, it's secure. But history says otherwise. There have been moments, real moments, where entire countries woke up and their money was basically worthless. Gone, finished, and the scary part? Nobody thought it would happen to them either. That's how this works. It's slow, until it's fast. And by the time everyone realizes, it's already too late. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because if you don't understand how fragile the system can be, you're putting yourself in a position where you have zero control. And I hate zero control. So in this video, we're breaking down 5 real countries where money became trash overnight. And more importantly, what you can learn so you're not the one getting caught off guard. Let me start here, because this is where most people lose before the game even begins. Complacency. It's quiet, it's comfortable, and it's dangerous as hell. Nobody wakes up one day and says, "Yeah, today's the day everything collapses." That's not how it works. It creeps, it builds, it hides behind routines, behind paychecks, behind that feeling of, "I'm good, nothing to worry about." And that right there, that mindset, is the vulnerability. People love certainty. They want to believe the system they're in is solid, that the rules won't change, that the money sitting in their account will always mean what it means today. But the truth? Systems are built by people, and people make mistakes. Governments pivot, economies shift, and when those shifts happen, they don't send you a polite warning email ahead of time. It just hits. And here's the part that really gets me. History has already shown us this playbook, over and over again. Entire populations caught off guard, not because there were no signs, but because they chose not to look. Or worse, they saw the signs and said, "Nah, that won't happen here." That sentence, "that won't happen here," has cost people everything. Everything. It's wild to me how we can be so sharp in other areas of life. People will research phones for 3 weeks before buying one. They'll compare specs, read reviews, watch videos. But when it comes to their financial reality, to the system that literally dictates their quality of life, they go on autopilot. They trust blindly. They assume stability. That's not strategy, that's hope. And hope is not a plan. I'm not saying live in fear. I hate fear-based living. That's not what this is about. This is about awareness. It's about respecting the fact that nothing is guaranteed. The moment you understand that, you start to move differently. You start asking better questions. You start thinking, what if? Not in a paranoid way, but in a prepared way. Because let's be real. When things go wrong at a macro level, you don't get extra time to figure it out. You don't get a grace period. The people who win, or at least survive better, are the ones who already considered the possibility. They didn't wait for permission to think critically. They didn't wait for the news to tell them it was time to panic. They were already moving with intention. And I get it. Complacency feels good. It's easy. It lets you sleep at night. But it's also what makes you slow to react. It's what makes you dismiss early signals. It's what keeps you locked into one way of thinking while the world is shifting underneath your feet. And speed. Speed is everything when things break. If you're late, you're done. So what do? You stay curious, you stay humble. You don't assume you've got it all figured out just because things are working right now. You understand that working right now is not the same as guaranteed forever. You build a mindset that's flexible, that's ready to adapt, that doesn't cling to comfort at the expense of reality. Because the truth is, the biggest risk isn't the collapse itself. It's being mentally unprepared for it. It's being so locked into comfort that when change hits, you freeze. And freezing in moments like that, that's where people lose everything. Complacency doesn't destroy you overnight, but it sets you up perfectly for the moment that does. Let's talk about something that a lot of people don't want to hear, but absolutely need to understand. Cash is not king. Context is king. And that's a mindset shift that changes everything if you actually let it sink in. We've all been taught growing up that money is security. Stack it, save it, protect it, and you'll be fine. And listen, there's truth in discipline. There's truth in being responsible. But the part that gets missed is this. Money only works because we all agree that it works. That's it. It's belief. It's trust. It's a shared understanding. And the second that understanding cracks, the whole thing starts to wobble. Think about that for a second. The paper, the numbers on your screen, the digits in your bank account, they don't have inherent value on their own. They represent value because the system says they do, and because society collectively buys into that system. But what happens when that belief gets shaken? What happens when people stop trusting the system, or the system itself starts breaking down? That's when things get real. That's when cash is king turns into cash is a problem. And this is where context becomes everything. Because money in the right environment, under the right conditions, is powerful. It gives you options, flexibility, leverage. But take that same money and drop it into a different context. An unstable economy, a collapsing currency, a system under pressure. And now it behaves completely differently. Same money, different reality. Most people don't think this way. They treat money like it's static, like its value is fixed, like it's immune to change. But it's not. It's dynamic. It's constantly shifting based on forces that are way bigger than any one individual. Inflation, policy decisions, global events. These things shape the context whether you like it or not. And here's where people get caught. They focus on the number, not the meaning behind the number. They say, I've got this much saved, I'm good. But they don't ask, what does that actually represent in the real world? Because that number can stay the same while its power drops. Quietly, slowly. Until one day, it's obvious. That's why I push so hard on awareness. You've got to understand the game you're playing. You've got to understand that money is a tool, not the foundation. The foundation is the system around it. And if that system shifts, your strategy has to shift with it. This is also why diversification matters so much, and we'll get into that more. But it starts right here, with the understanding that putting all your faith into one form of value, one currency, one environment is risky. Not because it's guaranteed to fail, but because it's exposed. And exposure without awareness is dangerous. I'm not telling you to abandon cash. I'm telling you to respect it for what it is, a piece of a bigger picture. You've got to zoom out. You've got to look at how things connect. Because if you're only focused on what's in front of you, you're missing the forces that can change it. And let's be honest, most people don't want to think about this. It's uncomfortable. It challenges the way they've been taught to see money their whole lives. But ignoring it doesn't make it less real. It just makes you less prepared. The people who navigate uncertainty the best are the ones who understand context. They don't panic when things shift because they already know that value isn't tied to one thing. They're flexible. They adjust. They move with the environment instead of being blindsided by it. And that's the game. It's not about holding on to money like it's untouchable. It's about understanding where that money sits, what supports it, and how quickly that can change. Because at the end of the day, money doesn't protect you. Understanding does. Here's the part that honestly blows my mind more than anything else. Everything we're talking about, none of it is new. None of it. This has happened before. Multiple times. Different places, different circumstances, but the same core pattern. And yet, people still act like it's some impossible scenario that could never touch them. That disconnect right there, that's the problem. History is not just stories. It's data. It's signals. It's patterns playing out in real time, over and over again, showing you exactly how humans behave when systems get stressed. And if you're not paying attention to that, you're choosing to stay blind. Not because the information isn't available, but because it's easier to ignore it. We love to think we're smarter now, more advanced, more informed, more protected. And in some ways, sure, we are. Technology, access to information, global connectivity, it's all better. But human nature? That hasn't changed. Fear hasn't changed. Greed hasn't changed. Denial hasn't changed. And those are the exact forces that show up every single time something breaks. Go back and look at any major financial collapse, any situation where money lost its value fast. You'll see the same rhythm. Early warning signs that people brushed off, small cracks that were explained away, experts debating, media spinning. Everyday people just trying to live their lives and hoping it all holds together. And then, boom, it tips. And once it tips, it moves fast, faster than most people can react. And here's the thing. It's not about predicting the exact moment. I'm not sitting here saying you need to call the day or the hour. That's not realistic. What is realistic is recognizing patterns. It's seeing the signals and saying, okay, I don't know exactly when, but I understand what this could turn into. That awareness alone puts you ahead of the majority. But most people don't want to do that work. It takes effort. It takes curiosity. It takes stepping outside your comfort zone and questioning the narrative you've been given. And let's be honest, that's uncomfortable. It's easier to scroll, to distract yourself, to assume someone else has it handled. But that mindset, that's how you get caught off guard. The information is out there. You can study past economies, past collapses, past recoveries. You can see what people did right, what they did wrong, how long it took, what the warning signs looked like. This isn't hidden, but it does require intention. It requires you to care enough to look. And I think that's the shift that needs to happen. You've got to stop seeing history as something that happened back then and start seeing it as something that's constantly informing what could happen next. Because the world doesn't operate in isolated moments. It's all connected. Decisions made years ago ripple forward. Patterns repeat, sometimes exactly, sometimes with slight variations. But the core is always there. And when you start to see that, you move differently. You're not shocked when things get shaky. You're not frozen when uncertainty shows up. You've already played out scenarios in your head. You've already thought about how you'd respond. That doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you prepared. Preparation is not about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions before you're forced to. It's about saying, what are the signals I should be watching? What are the risks I'm ignoring? Where am I assuming stability that might not be guaranteed? Those questions create awareness, and awareness creates options. Because when things shift, options are everything. If you've never thought about the possibility, you're starting from zero in a moment where speed matters most. But if you've been paying attention, even just a little, you've got a head start. You've got context. You've got perspective. And look, I'm not saying you need to become a historian or spend all day analyzing economic trends. That's not the point. The point is to respect the fact that patterns exist and to be curious enough to learn from them. Even a basic understanding can change how you see things. It can snap you out of that default everything will be fine mindset and into something more grounded, more real. Because the truth is, history doesn't repeat itself perfectly, but it rhymes enough that if you're paying attention, you can hear it coming. Ignore the past, and you'll feel the future hit you twice as hard. Let's get into something that a lot of people say they understand, but very few actually execute on properly. And that's diversification. And I don't mean the surface level version where you feel good because you've got a couple of different things going on. I mean real diversification, the kind that actually protects you when things get unpredictable. Because here's the truth. Putting all your eggs in one basket might feel safe when that basket is stable. When your currency is strong, your economy is steady, your system is functioning, it feels like the smartest move is to stay right there. Why complicate things, right? But that comfort is exactly what creates exposure. When everything you have is tied to one system, one currency, one way of storing value, you're not secure, you're dependent, and dependency is fine. Until that one thing gets tested, then it becomes a liability real fast. And I see this all the time. People think diversification is something only investors or wealthy individuals need to worry about. They think, I'm not playing at that level, so it doesn't apply to me. That's a mistake. Diversification is not about how much money you have. It's about how you think about risk. Because risk isn't just about losing money in a bad investment. Risk is being overexposed to a single point of failure. Risk is waking up in a situation where the thing you trusted the most is the thing that's breaking down. And if you've never thought about spreading that risk, you're putting yourself in a position where one shift can hit everything at once. Now, let's be practical here. Diversification doesn't mean doing 100 different things with your money. It's not about complexity for the sake of complexity. It's about intentional distribution. It's about understanding that different assets, different systems, different environments react differently under pressure. Some things hold value better in instability, some things move faster, some things are more flexible. And when you have a mix, you give yourself options. You give yourself the ability to adjust instead of being stuck. And that word, options, that's everything. Because when things go sideways, the people who have options are the ones who can breathe. They're the ones who can make decisions instead of reacting out of panic. They're not scrambling because they've already created multiple paths. But if everything you've built is tied to one path, one outcome, one assumption, you don't have options. You have hope. And again, hope is not a strategy. I also want to touch on something important here. Diversification is not just financial, it's mental. It's about how you see the world. If you're only consuming one perspective, one narrative, one version of how things work, you're limiting your ability to adapt. True diversification shows up in how you think, how you learn, how you prepare. Because let's be real, the world is changing fast, faster than ever. And systems that feel unshakable today can be tested tomorrow. That's not pessimism, that's reality. And the people who thrive in that kind of environment are not the ones who bet everything on stability. They're the ones who prepare for change. And I know some people hear this and think it's overkill. They think, why would I spread things out when everything seems fine? But that's exactly when you do it. You don't wait for instability to start thinking about protection. By then, it's too late. You build resilience while things are good, so you're not scrambling when things get tough. That's the mindset shift. It's moving from reactive to proactive. It's understanding that security doesn't come from putting everything in one place. It comes from not being fully dependent on any single thing. And again, this isn't about fear. It's about control. It's about putting yourself in a position where you're not at the mercy of one outcome. You're giving yourself flexibility, leverage, and the ability to pivot. Because when the unexpected hits, and it always does in some form, the last place you want to be is all in on something you can't control. If you don't diversify, you're not playing it safe. You're just concentrating your risk. Now let's talk about something that separates people more than almost anything else when things start to break. And that's speed. Not perfection, not having all the answers. Speed. The ability to move, to adapt, to make decisions when the environment shifts. Because here's the reality. When everything is stable, you can afford to overthink. You can analyze, you can wait, you can debate every angle. But when things start collapsing, that luxury disappears. The game changes, and the people who are still sitting there trying to be perfect, they get left behind. I've seen this pattern play out over and over again. When uncertainty hits, most people freeze. They hesitate, they second guess. They wait for more information, more clarity, more confirmation. But the problem is, in moments like that, clarity doesn't come first, movement does. And by the time it feels clear to act, the window is already closing. Speed is uncomfortable. It forces you to trust your instincts, your preparation, your awareness. It forces you to accept that you might not get it 100% right, and that's okay. Because in high-pressure situations, being early and slightly wrong is almost always better than being late and completely right. And let's be honest, that goes against how most people are wired. We're taught to be careful, to avoid mistakes, to get everything lined up perfectly before making a move. That works in predictable environments. It does not work when things are shifting fast. When systems start breaking down, hesitation becomes expensive. Every second you spend waiting is a second where the situation is evolving without you. And that gap, that delay, that's where people lose control. But here's the part that matters. You don't just magically become fast in those moments. Speed is built before the moment arrives. It comes from awareness, from understanding the risks, from thinking through scenarios ahead of time. It comes from not being caught completely off guard. If you've been paying attention, if you've been learning, if you've been asking the right questions, you're not starting from zero when things change. You've already got a baseline. You've already thought about your options. So when it's time to move, you move. That's why everything we've talked about up to this point matters. Awareness kills complacency. Understanding context gives you perspective. Learning from history gives you patterns. Diversification gives you options. And when you have all of that in place, speed becomes possible. Because now you're not reacting blindly, you're responding with intention. And let me be very clear. Speed doesn't mean recklessness. It doesn't mean making random decisions just to feel like you're doing something. It means making informed decisions quickly. It means trusting the work you've already put in, instead of waiting for perfect conditions that will never come. There's also something else here: confidence. Not ego, not arrogance, but confidence in your ability to figure things out as you go. Because that's the truth. In moments of uncertainty, nobody has it all figured out. Nobody has a perfect roadmap. The difference is, some people are willing to move anyway, and those are the people who create opportunity in chaos. While everyone else is stuck, they're adjusting. While everyone else is waiting, they're positioning themselves. They're not immune to the situation. They're just faster at navigating it. I think a lot of people underestimate how much control they actually have, even in unstable situations. They assume that once things go bad, it's all out of their hands. And yeah, there are things you can't control. But how you respond, how quickly you adapt, that's on you. And if you've never trained yourself to move under pressure, if you've never practiced making decisions without perfect information, those moments will expose you. You'll hesitate, you'll doubt, you'll wait. And waiting, in that kind of environment, is a losing strategy. So the goal is simple: build the muscle now. Start making decisions faster in your everyday life. Get comfortable with a little uncertainty. Stop needing everything to be perfect before you act. Because that habit, that mindset, is what shows up when it actually matters. At the end of the day, perfection is a luxury you don't have when things fall apart. But speed is a weapon you do.